Florida Satellite Studio. 12:30 a.m. Caribbean Satellite Studio. 1 o'clock a.m. Orange County, California Satellite Studio. 1:30 a.m. San Diego, California Satellite Studio. Stay tuned for more exciting programs only here on INCRadio.
This is INCRadio, DCEM 954, the voice of truth, the official radio station of the Church of Christ, or Iglesianicristo.
And welcome to INC Radio Florida. I am one of your hosts, Brother Robert Topalis, coming to you here from Tampa, Florida. I'd love to say it's sunny Florida, but today is definitely far from that. Today, of course, is Saturday, February 17th, and it is currently about 12:05 there in the Philippines, a little past midnight. It's 11:04 in the morning, however, here on the East Coast of the United States. And of course, we're so grateful that all of you were able to join us here today. But before we do that, we're going to go ahead and toss this over to Sister Audrey, who happens to be out and about this morning, out in the field, technically, who will be reporting a little later today on one of our activities. But we want to toss it to her for our international greetings this morning. Good morning, Sister Audrey.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us on INC Radio Florida this morning. Sister Audrey Topalis coming to you from our not so shiny Florida here right now, but we're here for an activity that we would love to talk about later on. But of course, we want to say thank you so much. Good morning. Hola, buongiorno, hello to everyone joining us on INC Radio Florida, and to all of our international viewers. We're so grateful for you for tuning in because, as you know, the Church of Christ is worldwide, and of course, all of our listeners come from all parts of the globe. So if you're listening to us and you're in a different time zone or a different state or country, please shoot it down in the comments below. We would love to hear where you're from. And of course, we can't continue on in our show without first extending our warm greetings. And if I'm going to toss that over to our sister Marisol over there on the other side of the Tampa Bay. Hello, Sister Marisol.
Hi, Sister Audrey, and hello to all of our listeners joining us this morning. First and foremost, before we get started on today's fun topic, we have to thank everyone who helps us make our show happen every week. So with that being said, we'd like to thank our beloved Executive Minister, Brother Eduardo V. Manalo, our SEBSI CEO and CFO Coordinator, Brother Angelo Aranyo Manalo. We'd like to thank our Station Manager, Brother Arnel Solano, and our Executive Producer, Brother Manly Andaya. Here on the home front in Florida, we cannot forget to thank our District Minister, Brother Marlon Balason, our Assistant District Minister, Brother Carlitos Medina, and our CFO Overseer, Brother Mark Bernal. And last but not least, we have to always thank you, Kuya Tech, for joining us and helping make our show happen this week. So as Sister Audrey said, we do have a activity this weekend, but it's not the only one. We are very busy here in Florida, rain or shine. So to keep us in the loop, we're going to toss over to Sister Joy over there in Orlando. Hi, Sister Joy.
Hi, Sister Marisol. Thank you so much for that introduction. Yes, everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. We're so happy to have you. And just like Sister Marisol said, yes, rain or shine, we are definitely busy and many great things happening here in the District of Florida. And in action, as Sister Audrey is in action, we have our CFO. And again, if you're just tuning in, CFO stands for Christian Family Organization. This is for all the members of the family to participate in our nature walk. So not only are we exercising spiritual fitness here in the District of Florida, we are also exercising physical fitness. So we're getting out again, rain or shine. It's a little gloomy, but we are all looking forward to the camaraderie, Christian camaraderie, being together. And this is district wide. So whichever region you are in, whether it's in the Tampa region, the Central Florida region, Pensacola or Jacksonville region, we are very eager to get out and get our physical fitness on. We also are looking forward tomorrow for a very special gathering for our SCAN and CMDPS gathering. And this is for all of those that are in the medical field. Also, just a time, just like how we previously had a special choir gathering. So again, we're exercising this weekend, spiritual fitness and our physical fitness. So we're really looking forward to that. Now we're going to dive into today's show and our topic. So I'm going to pass it over to Brother Robert.
Thank you so much, Sister Joy. Today we've got a really, really fun topic we're going to be talking about. We've done this a couple of times on the show in different ways, because it's always a treat for us to show how old Brother Robert is, and and all of the disparity that happens in understanding the differences in the generations. Last week we had that show where we were talking about couples that were navigating that generational gap and why it works so well for them. But then it sometimes doesn't work so well when you're talking about the generation gaps between like millennials and Gen Zs and Gen Xs. And that's gonna be what we're gonna be talking about here today. So let's go ahead and dive into our topic for today. And hopefully it's coming up on the screen.
I'm really eager to start discussing.
All right. So today's topic is, do you guys remember when? Just the whole remember when of, do you remember when you were a little kid and how things were different? And we always talk about this. Brother Jim, who's not with us today, we talk all the time about, man, kids today just don't understand some of the struggles that we had to go through because, life today for them may seem pretty difficult, but man, was it really different for us when we were growing up but you know what? That's the whole point of understanding generations because everything is relative. We've talked about this before, right? So to us, it didn't seem so hard. Today it might be a little bit more of a struggle. So we're going to have some input actually from one of our binhees that's there in Tampa. We're going to have Sister Audrey introduce her while they're there out at the park for today's nature walk. Sister Audrey.
Yes, sorry, it is a little windy here, as you can see by the Tampa Bay. We're over by the water. So this is a little bit of our nature here in the Tampa region. But this is my dear sister Casey Jow here from Tampa. Sister Casey, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, good morning. My name is Sister Casey. I am from the Tampa locale. I am City Risk Choir there. Um, I'm very happy to be here this morning. Thank you for having me.
All right. Well, good morning, Sister Casey, and thanks for joining us. Did Sister Audrey warn you about what we're going to be doing today?
Did I warn you about what we're doing today?
At breakfast.
At breakfast. Wow. Okay. So, not much of a heads up. Well, we're going to dive right in because what we're talking about today is the differences in understanding, what life was like back then and whether or not kids today will actually understand the struggle that we had to go through or if they even understand some of the things we're going to be talking about. So, the first thing, of course, whenever we talk about that is technology. There's such a gap that exists in technology today. And when you're looking at these different things that are here, I'm going to ask Sister Casey, do you recognize those items that are on the top right hand corner of the screen in black? Do you know what those are?
Is that a cassette tape?
A cassette tape. Wow. Okay. Well, they function the same way, but these are called VHS tapes. VHS tapes. Did you know what we used to use these for?
No, I do not. What do you guys use them for?
We used to use these to be able to watch movies. This is how you watched a movie and how you used to record movies. Like today, if you wanted to record something, you would just like hit the record button on the TV and it would record it, right? Back in the day, if you wanted to record your favorite show, you actually had to stick a tape into this big, massive machine. And I don't know, Sister Joy, do you remember having to set the timer because you didn't know what time the show was going to air, so you had to like give it 5 minutes?
That was actually considered a luxury to be able to record those things. So no, I don't remember to having to set the timers. I just remembered like if we had it on VHS, we had it or we had to actually, which is something that we might discuss a little later, but like uh, just having that availability of the cassette was how we watched it, unlike a click of a button and then it's there.
And then clicking, right? Because today, when you guys want to watch a movie, Sister Casey, how do you normally watch a movie?
It really depends. Sometimes there's Netflix, there's Hulu, there's a lot of streaming websites, or,
Right?
even if you're old or even if you have the means, you can go and buy like a DVD or something. There you go.
Did she say if you're old, you can go buy a DVD?
Yes,
No.
she
So
did.
once again, we are demonstrating how old Brother Robert is, because
It was a good
we
catch.
yeah, we had to actually buy our videos or rent them in order to do it. And today, I think the biggest difference though is just the choice volume, right? When we used to go to rent VHS tapes, you had like there were only 5 copies of a show, of that particular tape, and you had to be the first one there. But more importantly, you had a very limited selection. I feel like today, if you have like all the streaming services, you've got thousands. Like, do you guys ever find yourselves like not knowing what to watch and you're just sitting there? I don't know. There's a term that they like death scrolling through all of the different streaming services to figure out what you want to watch. Is that a thing?
Throwing back to these moments of my childhood, I just kind of, it's mind-boggling because for me it wasn't that long ago, y'all. I'm not that old, okay? But just thinking of how we've come so far, like, and now you can stream and watch these movies on any like a mobile device, on your laptop, on a tablet.
Yeah.
Um,
In fact, I think
before
Sister Casey's watching a show right now on her phone
there, I mean, right?
while she's doing our show.
It just blows my mind because I'm thinking, wow, I physically had to go to a store, pick up, you have to look at whatever's available there, select it. And like you said, Brother Robert, like there's only limited copies of these movies, especially if they, are a new release. And then you have to check out, then you have to go home, right? And
Yeah,
then watch
and
it.
actually plug it. And the most important thing is at the end, remember, be kind and rewind.
Oh, that was awesome. Yes, they had those special devices, another appliance device type thingy where, yeah, you had to rewind it.
Rewind your videotapes. That's it before you return them.
That was cool.
Well, here's another thing, Sister Casey. Underneath the VHS tapes, which, by the way, for the bonus points, what does VHS stand for?
I have no clue.
Anybody know what VHS
No,
stands for?
I don't even know.
You guys don't know? What about you, Sister Audrey?
Video.
Uh, video, uh, helping system.
Okay, well, you got 2 out of the 3. Video home system is what VHS stands for. So there you go. A little bit of knowledge thrown at you. Sister Casey, underneath the VHS tapes, you see there's a device that's there, and it looks like probably something you've seen before, but it's plugged into something else. Do you know what that was for?
I would like to say it looks like a phone, but
Yeah.
I have a feeling it's not what it's used for.
Well, in a way, it is used for communication. So you don't know what that's for.
No.
That's how we got on the internet back in the day. You would literally have to take your phone that's plugged into a landline, phone line, plug it into what that little black device was called a modem. And then that little thing on the left shows you the progress as it's dialing a phone number to connect you to the internet. And the whopping speed you had there was to download one photo that was maybe, I think, like 25 kilobytes or something like that, would literally take you nearly an hour. So, and there was nothing worse than starting your download, then going off to go someplace, waiting that hour, and then somebody picks up the phone in the other room and disconnects you. And then you get to start all over again. So, you guys with your high-speed internet today on your phones. All right. Next one. Entertainment. When you talk about entertainment, there are 3 things here that you'll see, and one of them is cartoons. If you guys want to watch animation today, would you say, Sister Casey, that you guys have a pretty large library of animation stuff
Yeah,
that you could watch?
think that we have a lot of more, things that we can watch as animation grows over the years. Like you compare things from like when first Disney started, making the movies, and then now you compare them to like their Encanto and stuff. It's definitely a lot has changed. Yeah.
Well, when you look at the way that that's evolved because of streaming services, that's what we were talking about earlier. There was a time, and this is when I wish Brother Jim was here because he and I definitely could relate. The only time you could watch cartoons as a kid were Saturday mornings between 8 o'clock and 11 o'clock in the morning, and those were the only time that there were cartoons, and they were only on two channels on your TV. During the week, it was sports or news or talk shows, and then of course, movies from back in the day. But Saturday morning cartoons, that was a thing that we used to appreciate. Getting up early on a Saturday so you can catch your favorite cartoon. Not anymore. You can do
Not
that
anymore.
any
It's
time of day.
available right there on your handheld.
Now, earlier you talked about the Sister Casey up on the top left-hand corner. Those things that are laying out there. You know what those are, right?
Yes, I do.
And those are cassette tapes you mentioned, right? But the
Yes.
significance about cassette tapes back then was obviously not just to play the music, but you can also record on them. And like today, if you have an artist or a bunch of artists that you're listening to on your favorite music streaming service, um, and you wanted to like take different songs from different artists, you build something. What do you build in your streaming service to be able to play all the different songs?
A playlist.
It's a playlist, right? Well,
Mhm.
back in the day, we used to call those mixtapes. In a mixtape, and Sister Joy's dying because she knows the struggle. If I wanted to record, like for Sister Lulu, when I was first courting her, would make a mixtape of all of our favorite songs together. I literally would have to sit by the radio with a cassette recorder and press the play and record button when the song starts, and hopefully not get the DJ's introduction. If I miss it, I get to wait another half an hour to 45 minutes until they play the song again.
And there's
So
usually like a whole process to that, right? Like you have to wait for the song, and it's not just press play. Like, and these were like physical buttons. Like you had to press it down, make sure like it locks in. You press play and the record button
at
at
the
the
same
same
time, you
time.
had to be coordinated. If you weren't coordinated, then your mixtape just wasn't going to work, and
Yeah,
you'd have
and then in
blank
addition
spaces.
to that, you had to make sure that there was enough tape so it doesn't
Oh,
cut off.
that was the worst because then you get halfway through the song and then you run out of tape, and then they got to turn it over in order to play the other side.
The
So
struggle, the struggle.
yeah. Oh, but those were gold back then. If you made a mixtape for someone, that meant you were serious. They would cherish that.
That's
All right,
love.
we talked about video nights already and streaming services because with the advent of these video stores that used to rent videos today, that's all just streaming. That's everything comes through streaming. So let's take a look at the other difference. Cultural shifts. Sister Casey, when was the last time that you hand wrote an actual letter?
This Monday, actually.
When?
Yeah, I wrote a really long birthday letter for one of my friends.
No way. Things are getting
See,
very
they're
retro.
sentimental too,
Yeah.
but they call that vintage.
Oh, vintage. Brother Robert is very
Wow.
vintage. Yeah, that's
Vintage. That's definitely the term to say, like another way of saying like old.
there was a time when and I'm again dating myself because obviously it's worth it. The I still have a box of the letters that Sister Lulu and I used to write each other when we were back in the 80s, right? And there was no email, there was no texting. You would write letters back and forth. It would take 3 days, 4 days for them to get there, and then you would write back after you got that letter. And then sometimes I don't know if anybody's ever done that. I'd love opening the letters because they would have her smell like a perfume on it, right? That was a thing I think that they would do just to really just kind of personalize the whole letter experience. So I'm glad to hear that you're still writing letters, though, Sister Casey. That's
Vintage.
an important skill.
Vintage.
Yes, exactly. I tried to not write letters because my handwriting is so poor. So, what about on the top right? Do you prefer digital or do you like printing your photos and keeping them in an album?
I actually do like printing out my photos. I have this camera that automatically, like, when you take the picture, it prints out the photo like immediately.
Mhm.
So I like keeping them and I like dating them. I like hanging them on my walls, just for decoration and stuff, just to look back. I'm like, oh my gosh, I remember that time.
'Cause it's really vintage, right? Is that the word
Classic,
we're using?
classic.
It's classic. Okay,
It's
so
another term too,
I'd
vintage
rather
and
be
classic.
vintage and classic. Now, printing a photo through like an instant camera and getting like instant gratification from it is great. The way we used to do it was we would get a roll of film, remember? And you would have to take that roll of film to a lab, and the lab would actually have to develop the photos. And the problem with that is that you go through like 12 or 24 photos, and then you never know if they were in focus, or you never know until they print whether or not you got what you were trying to capture, like especially if it was like an event with kids running around. And it was always sort of this like anticipation when you go through your 24 photos to see if you got the shot that you wanted. Today, you take your phone and you take 15. You ever notice that when people take pictures, Sister Joy, Sister Marisol, when you take pictures on your phone, you take like 10, like you hand it to a waiter to take your picture, and they tell you, I took a bunch. And then when you look at it, all 10 of them are the exact same photo.
Unlike before, like what you mentioned, I remember taking family photos and my family, whether it was my mom or dad, okay, smile. And then it would be like maybe a week or two, or maybe even longer. And then when we get the photo, you have to go to the store, develop the film. And then when they got it and they'll go through it, they're like, you didn't smile.
And it,
And
and
it
it
took
was
that long.
and it was too late, right? I mean, there was you weren't going to be able to get that photo any longer because it was taken during an event that is already in the past. So
Yeah,
it's
another struggle.
life was hard. People just don't get it. And then the top left-hand corner is you know what those are up there, Sister Casey?
I do not. What are those?
Those are called encyclopedias. Today, those are encyclopedias. Today, I think you young people call it Google.
Today it's a
So,
website.
yeah, yeah. Today, it's a website. That used to be the way that we would research information. If I wanted to find out what the population of Africa was, I literally had to open a book and look it up. Now, of course, that didn't tell me what it was as of that moment because it was whenever the book was written, right?
Whenever it was printed or released.
Yeah, so according to the encyclopedia, 4 years ago, the population was X, right? If you wanted to find out like the botany questions about plants, you would have to look it up in this book and hope that it was up to date. And of course, the way they got you is you would always have to buy the updates to the encyclopedia. And I remember we had bookcases of that stuff in the house, and that was. But today, of course, you have websites to search. So
One thing that brother Billy, my husband, would always he tells some of our binhi, he's like, when I was your age, I read the entire encyclopedia. And then they look at him like, inside what?
it's like, who?
What is that? And then he has to go on and explain, like, oh, the encyclopedia, it was this, it was like what you said, the Google of our time today.
And
So
then why would you read it, right?
I know. Well, that says a lot about Brother Billy, right?
Yes,
Well,
exactly. If I had the L encyclopedia, I knew everything about lizards to lemons to limes.
oh man, Brother Billy is a very learned man, so we'll give him that.
I like it. We're staying with the L theme here.
That's right. All right. Well, hopping down to I think one of our last categories is social changes. And what do you prefer, Sister Casey? Do you prefer playing outdoors, or do you prefer just kind of vegging out at home on your social media?
Well, personally, I do like being alone, but with the right people, I could get out. I would like go outside with them, hang out with them. But I do like hanging out with them more outside because at home, my parents are always nagging
Look,
at me.
look at nagging at. Okay, you do know that this is a an international show, and your parents are probably watching right now. So
Highly likely, yes.
this is where you say, "Love you, mom and dad." Okay.
I love you guys.
Well, and that's one of the big social changes I think we talk about. Like I remember growing up, and during the summer especially, we obviously didn't have any of the device centric activities that so many kids have today. We played outside. In fact, I think this is a picture of my neighborhood. We'd be outside, and I wouldn't necessarily play hopscotch because I'm not that coordinated, but we would play, stick ball, which was a thing that we used to do out in the streets, and we would come home, playing right in our front yard, and we would come back just as the sun starts to come down, and that's how we spent our summers and our weekends. Versus, I think today, as you can see there to the left of that photo, a lot of our kids are spending too much time on their screens because they're being drawn in and they're not getting that activity. And one of the things that gets lost in that, which I think is an important thing to note, if you notice down at the bottom picture, is just having face to face conversations with people. If we don't allow our kids to go out there and experience being outdoors and interacting and having live interactions, they're going to lose that skill of being able to just communicate and socialize. And that's why I think one of the biggest differences, unfortunately, we're seeing today is we see more and more of our youth that aren't really capable of building those interpersonal relationships, like being able to speak and talk to one another in person. So that's, I think, one of the big lessons for them. And we're hoping that more and more, like Sister Casey, are going to be able to enjoy being outside. All right. Well, that was fun. Thank you, Sister Casey, for joining us. I, always enjoy being reminded how old I am. And when people say, "What
Vintage.
is that?" I have no idea what that is. Do you have any shout outs that you want to give before we close out? Because we are the fastest 30 minutes on radio. We're at the bottom of the hour. You want to say hi to anybody?
I do want to shout out my parents. Sorry for early. I do love you guys. Shout out our lovely people here at the nature walk. You saw them running in the background. um,
Excellent. Excellent.
yeah, that's it.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Well, we're at the bottom of the half hour, and we want you to stick around because coming up next is going to be INC Radio Caribbean. But for now, this is Brother Robert Topalis here in Tampa, Florida, for Sister Joy, that's there in Orlando, for Sister Audrey and Sister Casey, that's there someplace in Tampa right now for the Nature Walk, and of course, Sister Marisol, who's joining us here also in Tampa, Florida. And a special shout out, I've got to give a special shout out to my wife. Happy anniversary, Sister Lulu, today, for putting up with me for 3 decades, but I'm not going to tell you what the exact number is. But thank you so much for joining us today on INC Radio Florida. Please stay tuned, and we will see you next week on Saturday. Have a wonderful Saturday afternoon, everyone.